Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the New Normal podcast with Lee and Chantelle. How are we doing today?
Hello, Chantelle.
Why you keep laughing?
I'm just happy that we're doing a podcast together.
Oh, damn. Okay. I see where you're heading with that.
Yeah.
Now, that there is great communication because we're going to talk about communication today.
Okay. Smooth
Like,
transition.
huh?
Smooth transition.
Well, it was supposed to be, but I didn't recognize or I didn't realize how important communication is. Well, I do know the importance of it, but like just seeing it in everyday life, like communication is a skill. Like I literally think it's a skill. I growing up in high school and every teacher is always like, okay, like for your presentations, you have to do this and this and this. Like these are important things to incorporate in your presentation. And I was like, oh, everyone can present. It's not a big deal. The only thing that people really go at like have an obstacle with is maybe they're being nervous or whatnot. But like communication and like how you present information and how you try to teach someone is really important because if you say things a certain way, it can be misconstrued if you don't say it in a like a clear, concise type of way. You know what I mean? Like, have you had this problem in everyday life? Not including me, because I'm working on it, which is why I want to talk about this topic today because it's so like I've never been so like fired up about communication before.
You just enforced the idea all of us had when I work in door-to-door sales. When when some of uh, some of us, some of us,
Some of us,
some
yeah.
of us,
English
some of
pronunciation.
us,
Okay.
right? Some of us were asked, did you have a previous sales experience? Some people answered, oh, I work in retail in the mall and things like that. And then our manager were like, working in retail is not sales. They don't know anything about sales.
Yeah.
So you have worked in retail in the mall before, and now you're saying you don't know anything about communication. This just reinforced what my manager has told us and what we have since believed.
Well, no, okay, like there are different communication styles. I think there's a time and place for everything. And like retail communication is not really communication. Like it's what? Like retail as in clothing, for example. You're not really communicating anything other than the customer asking you what size they want, do you have this in stock, etc. But I thought in communication, what I'm trying to get at is there's a story, okay, behind this. And at work, I just had a workshop that I had to sit like for about an hour or so, 45 minutes to an hour. And that's why I never had such a burning desire about communication because in this workshop, it was through Zoom. There were like three presenters. They each had like part of the deck, like because there's three of them, one third of it was the deck. And firstly, like I recognized all the wrong things about it that I couldn't really focus on the topic that they were speaking on, which is so ironic because the topic that they're speaking on is literally the slide itself and everything on it. So, like, firstly, they didn't really give an overview of the presentation. Secondly, they were reading off the slides. Thirdly, they didn't even stop to ask any questions. Like, what's the point of having a workshop if I'm not learning anything? It's just like I'm wasting time. I could have just learned everything by myself. Just give me a manual and I'll learn it by myself. That's foolproof, right? Instead of having a workshop and then I have 10 extra questions that I didn't have from the beginning type of thing. So that's why I was like, whoa, like when I was thinking back and I'm like, this is why like teachers and like people who interview others even for a job would really want someone who is good at communicating and who has good presentation skills because it's a skill. Like uh, if you're saying something one way and then it cannot even be transferred to the other person on the other side, you really didn't communicate then at all. Like, I don't think that's communication. Like, to me, the definition of communication is really getting your point across so that other person understands what you're saying. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, there are two different types. The one that you're talking about, the presentation, is like one person to many people.
Hmm.
But then when you said communication, I was thinking about like talking to a person one-on-one, and you know,
Even
things
so,
like
because
that.
like during the question period, it wasn't even like a back and forth dialogue. Like,
Yeah, but what for a presentation, it doesn't have to be a dialogue though. Whereas
it's not
one-on-one
supposed
can,
to be, yeah, it's a
whereas
presentation.
one-on-one communication has to be. It's kind of different. Like for, as example, Martin Luther King had a speech. It had several speech that were like in the history books. So everybody knows them. You know, he was giving those speech, and then it was historical. It was black people, white people, everybody was there. They all heard it, and then it led a movement. But then before him, before Martin Luther King, there's a bunch of people that said the exact same thing, but then there was no movement. So
Hmm.
it's what he said, how he said it, the way he carried himself, and everything like that, right? So that's like you could know the same thing as him, you could have been saying the right things too, but then the way you communicate is not as powerful, is not as transcendent. It would lead to nothing.
Hmm.
He wasn't the only one who was advocating equal rights, and you know, like he was conveying old ideas, but his communication style was so powerful that led to that that transfer from words to action in other people.
Hmm. But then I guess it's like part of it too is knowing your audience, right? And then that
Well,
ties into the communication.
yeah, that's why I would say it's kind of different, because it's like when you're doing a presentation, you can't really, like, you can group everybody together and think about like what type of group I'm talking to, but you can't really
Yeah,
tailor it to each person. Whereas if you're talking one-on-one with people, you can literally tailor the style you're communicating with each person, their perspective, their personality, their everything.
that's true. So I guess from let's talk about presentations first then, because like my story is based on a presentation type of thing. But just like even just if you're teaching someone's like something.
By the way,
Mhm.
because of that, not everybody understands things the same way, and not everybody has a different perspective. A confusing presentation to you could have been very clear to other people. So even
Mm,
like I understand what you're saying, like this is just
I'm iffy on
overall.
that one. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
know.
if I agree with that one. It's making me burn.
Yeah, I know. I understand what you're saying. I understand you're just saying it just badly presented. It's confusing. But what I'm saying though is even if it was a good presentation for others, it could still be confusing to you. Or the other way around, something very clear to you might have been confusing to others. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
No, it doesn't make
So
sense.
no, because like you know how you're always like something logical will always make sense. Like one plus one will always be two because it's logical, right?
Yeah, but like there are a lot of logical professors in our university, and they present a logical argument, a logical lecture. To me, it was very clear. Without effort, I remembered it because how the logic went down. But everybody else got like a low grade because they didn't understand what he was saying.
Hmm.
So, like, whose fault is it? He was making, in my opinion, good, like logic proof points. But then if out of 40 people, 40 students, I was the only person who understood it. Was it his fault or the other 39 students who didn't understand logic?
Do you think it could be part both? because, for example, as a presenter, shouldn't you hit all the sides of presenting? So that's why like a good presenter would have all different communication styles or presentation styles. They would have like visual, they would have something logical, they would have something that's like audio or whatever, like different elements to present so that every part of like whatever audience is in front of them that they're trying to teach something to would be able to receive that style of presentation, that presentation style or that teaching method. Even like some people would be good with a video insert, some people would be good with a logic work like flow chart type of thing.
There are people who are professional at it. They make money
Yeah.
presenting, and they have a target audience, and they can study the target audience and tailor it to them.
Okay,
But
but maybe not that intense, but I
but
guess my point is like, sorry, go
but
ahead.
but if you are someone who's constantly presenting to like random people, almost like at your work, for example, the person who presenting to you, I'm assuming he present to you and he rotate to the next department, he presents to someone else. He's not gonna study all of you and try to put together something that tailors to you. Just as an
Yeah.
example, or they just happen to have that job and they can't change, right? Like
Yeah.
like for example, when we do the podcast, we're not thinking about how we can tailor it to the audience. We're just being ourselves, and even if we knew other ways it would have been more effective, we couldn't do it. This is just who we are. What are we gonna do?
Yeah. Or not necessarily who we are, because we're, I would hope, the type of people that would wanna, not I hope, that we're the type of people that do improve and are seeking and proactively seeking ways to improve ourselves. But it's just that like with our podcast, we're just chill, we're just hanging out, and we're, at least I'm grateful. I guess we're both grateful to be doing this together, and it's a different take on our relationship. So,
Yeah. It's like recently we've been trying to sell one of our trucks, right? And then let's say I went to the secondhand dealership and then get a quote from them, and they said, oh, we can give you X amount. And I talked to my mom, and my mom was like, oh, if they can give you X, you must be able to get more than X if you sold it on your own.
yeah.
Like if you took it online, you took pictures, you'll be able to sell it more for a higher price. I was like, no, I can't make, like, that's not my strength. That's not who I am. I can try to do that, but then it will cost me 1,000 times more effort than other people who are professional in selling secondhand cars. And if there's always a limited opportunity for you to do better, but is it worth it? If I export a car to another country that needs the car more, I'm gonna sell it even more. But am I gonna put all the effort in trying to learn how to export a car just to earn that little more?
Yeah.
You know what
Okay.
I'm saying? Or take our podcast as an example. If I can put a whole bunch of flow charts that flying by and presenting, maybe it would have been more appealing to people who enjoy visual changes.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's just not what this podcast is about. But
That's not like doing the podcast is like an 80-20 rule.
here we go,
I
Pareto principle.
Yeah, I can put in 20% effort but getting 80% of result. If I do all of that, I need to put an additional 80% effort, but I only capture 20% more audience, because it makes our video a little more appealing to people who like those visuals, but I will never be even close to be as good at as other people who are into visuals. They will always
Mm.
just gravitate toward those channels anyway. You know
Yeah,
what
I
I'm saying?
guess. Yeah, yeah, I understand. But so then in this case with the presentation or the workshop that I attended online, like if
Although I do agree with you, most people, not like professional or not, including salespeople, most people don't know how to communicate at
Mhm.
all.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I just want to wrap up that workshop and the presentation. Like, what then if, let's say you're right, they're not the type of people who would be teaching a group of people about a certain topic. So in that case, what would be the best approach to teach someone? Because for me, I view it as, okay, they're doing a workshop, they're teaching me something new. It's kind of like if I'm a new hire and I'm getting trained on a certain topic, then I would assume, like I would hope that the people who have been in the position for so long would be able to put like communicate or teach what their topic is in a simple and clear manner, you know? Like those who master what they're doing is able to speak on the topic in the most simple forms that even a 5-year-old could understand. Isn't that true? Like,
Yeah,
shouldn't it should be at that point, no?
that's an Einstein quote.
Yeah,
He said, if you can't explain a topic to a 5-year-old and have them to understand it, then you don't understand it enough yourself.
right.
But
So,
that's the nature of the bell curve. You know the bell curve? So
yeah, some
it's like
universities use it, ours didn't.
so it's like there's like small in the beginning and then goes round and then goes small at the end,
Yeah, it like
meaning
peaks at the top.
meaning like the top elite people is going to be very small percentage, and then the bottom very bad people is going to be very small percentage, and most people are going to be average people in the middle.
Yeah.
So that's how it is, and only the elite top people can understand it well enough to convey the message clearly to everybody. Also, you have to understand it really well, and you got to know how to communicate it,
Right.
and you got to know who you're talking to,
Yeah.
which I guess is part of the communication skill. But like I said, it's like you know, when I talk to you, for example, I gave you examples or stories or analogies that would be different if I were to talk to someone else,
Yeah.
because you understand these examples better. So that's like taking like, but then they either they don't know how to do that or they don't care enough to do that. You know,
Yeah. And mind you, like, also, I'm not bashing these people. It's nice that they, took it upon themselves to create a workshop and it's a different resource to learn from. It's just that, if this was their first time trying this Zoom workshop type of thing because of COVID or like just people not being in the office yet. But I was hoping that more thought and effort would have been put into the presentation itself, the question and answers itself, even just adding like diagrams, or they were teaching us about a software that we use internally in this organization. So I was like, well, I would have had expected if I were to replicate what they were trying to teach me, that the software dashboard would be seen so that I could also follow and be familiar with what they're trying to teach me. So that's why that's what was so frustrating to me too, is because it's like it's kind of a simple thing to follow if it's a standard software that everyone in the organization is using. So if it had been implemented this long, there should be some sort of resource or visual on how to click, where to click, how to input things. In any case, this
there are
workshop really fired up me up about how I needed to start thinking about my communication. And so, yeah, sorry, you were gonna say something.
There are two things I like to say. The
Mm,
first one is to defend them. To be fair, it is very difficult. It is not easy. There's a valuetainment interview I watched with the the owner of valuetainment,
mm,
Patrick something David,
bet.
Pat
BET.
David, yeah. And then one of his employees, I think he was his employee, interviewed him and asked him the the your strength, like the most powerful thing you do is that you develop a lot of leaders. How do you do that? And
Mm,
he said, everybody has a different drive, different motive. You got to know what they're like, what motivate them, and then you got to communicate differently.
yeah,
And he was like, this is why I can develop more leaders. I can drive them better, but it is still very, very difficult for me. So it's like a very difficult skill,
yeah.
um, because you watch YouTube and look at all the great people like Elon Musk explaining rocket science to you on Twitter with 140 characters. So you just think, oh, this is how everything should be explained. But then like you're kind of spoiled with like very intelligent people who have great communication skills.
Yeah.
The second point is in a book I read called No Rules Rules.
I was gonna talk about that after, but
Okay,
okay, go ahead.
but real quick though, in there, he gave an example. In their company, they have a policy of giving feedback at any
Yeah.
time, but it has to be critical feedback. What is it called? Critical feedback? Just like
Well,
not
like
insulting
candor
the person.
feedback.
Yeah. So he gave the example of he was giving a presentation and then he was telling the audience to do something, to do an exercise. And he went to the audience and then to monitor the exercise. And one of the employees called him aside and said, hey, I forgot exactly, but he basically said, hey, you did this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. And if you said it this way, we would understand it a lot better. And then he
Yeah.
went back to the stage and he did it. He took in the device and he adjusted it on the fly, and then the presentation went better. So in that case, he was saying you got to encourage the culture to give actually feedback so that everyone can improve. And in your scenario, my question to you is, if he's not very good at communicating the information to you, but did you do your job effectively communicating back to him why it was confusing to you, what needed to be done to do better, and all of that, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna hit on this topic because like I'm starting to read the book again, which is No Rules Rules, which you already mentioned by Aaron Myers, and read, oh no, I forgot his last name. I forgot his last name, but if you look for Erin Myers and No Rules Rules, she's going to be there. And she did a few interviews too, actually, with like Jason Calacanis, is like how we heard of it, or you showed it to me. And so,
Mm.
anyways, like really valuable information about the workplace and communication. And that also reminded me of a time where I have colleagues who are putting together a project and like putting it out for people to give feedback on, but I have a lot to say about it, and I haven't given that feedback. So part of it is like, yes, I didn't do my part to communicate the feedback, and so like they couldn't know as well. Like maybe they're just, it's not their forte to begin with, to be putting together these presentations or putting together these projects. So it goes both ways, which is why it's communication. Like both sides have to speak to each other in order for things to get done.
Yeah,
So
there are a lot of people who are just unwilling to change no matter what you say to them.
yeah,
In that case, it has nothing to do with you. But if you're just saying, oh, their communication is confusing, but you're not giving them feedback? What if they didn't know it was confusing, and if they did know it was confusing, they didn't know how to change it, and they
Mhm.
are I don't know, right? I don't know these people, but if they are the people who are willing to change, they are not changing just because they don't know it, then it's kind of on you to communicate that to them.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, if they're willing to change or unwilling to change.
If they're unwilling to change, there's nothing you can do.
Right.
But if they're willing to change, they're not changing because they don't know how to. Like, as example, if you go up to them after the presentation and be like, you know, the presentation was kind of confusing for me. If you could demonstrate it in a video as you were talking about the software, I think it would connect for me a lot more. And then they were like, oh, that's interesting. You bring that point up. Maybe I will try it next time. Then
Yeah.
in that case, it's kind of on you to tell them, because how would they know otherwise?
Yeah.
Impossible
Well,
for them to know.
yeah, which is kind of what happened in the very end. And they started putting up, they shared their screen and they put up the software, which is why I don't think it's necessarily difficult to do that, to just mirror what they're doing on their end. But like you said, it like depends on what type of presentation is. So it can be difficult. But in this case, because it's through Zoom, they just shared their screen and then we're able to see everything that they're doing on their end, which has its flaws too, because maybe they don't have like a practice view of the software, and it's not as robust as some of the software that I've been previously trained on. So anyways,
Imagine, imagine the they've done a presentation before doing the one with you. They did the presentation exactly the one, just like the one they did with you.
yeah.
And then some person came up to them and said, you know what? The share screen you did at the end was great. It was so much clearer. I think if you did that from the beginning, it would be so much better. Thank you
Mhm.
for a presentation. It was great.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna take it positively. They're gonna be like, "Oh shit!" The end. He specifically complimented the end of my presentation. Let me do that more. So when he gets to
Mhm.
your presentation, he was he would have done that.
Yeah.
Well, but you didn't say anything this time. The next presentation he goes to, he probably would do the same thing again because he
Mhm.
didn't get that feedback. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
Granted, even if he does, most people wouldn't change because they just do whatever makes themselves feel comfortable. But
Right.
but if you never said anything, you don't even know that's the case. So
Mhm.
it's on you.
Which is why I'm like hesitant with my colleagues right now who are trying to roll out a project, because I want to give feedback, but the workplace culture is not where Netflix is at. So this candor feedback originates from Netflix, and so like they have this like hardcore cutthroat kind of culture, but it's not really. It's just based on really like just being authentic about things, and it just creates like increases in efficiencies if you are open and you are discuss things in a critical manner, like
Yeah, you can't do that in your organization. Don't
no,
do
not at all. So this
that.
workplace is very conservative, very very traditional. So that's what I mean, as in my hesitation to even put my feedback in with my colleagues, because it's not known. It's not even known for someone to speak to higher management, for example. It's a very bureaucracy type of organization, and yeah, so I
You know what
because I
that's
know this. Sorry.
you know what that is called?
What?
Politics.
Okay, fine, politics, whatever.
Yeah,
There's no politics in my head. I can talk to whoever I want to. I don't think there's any barrier.
it's
It's whatever.
pretty it's pretty you know, easy to
What?
comprehend. It goes hand in hand. Government, politics,
Okay, well,
but
in
yeah.
my world, there's no such thing. I think it's like I don't know. I think it's a little bit silly, and that's how things don't get done. So anyways, yeah, I'm just hesitant to talk to them because like I mentioned earlier, I know my audience, I know the culture, I know this and that. So it's like a twofold where you have one side who's trying to roll out something to help uh, the department or whatever, but it's it's like a fold on the other side where okay, like we want your feedback, we want to do better, but if you do give the feedback, it's kind of like, well, like you're overstepping now. So anyways,
That's
this is the
that's
dilemma that I face.
well, that's why you need to apply techniques. That's why you need to
Yeah,
understand the setting, the personality, the everything, and then communicate in a very specific way. You know, there's like you gotta go straight, you can go around. This
yeah.
is the analogy a boxer uses. He was like one of the all-time great boxers. He was trying to teach another female champion how to box. And this female champion, she knocks everybody out. And then
Mm.
and then he came to her and he said, you know, if you want to take something from someone's house, you don't have to kick through the front door every time. You can go around the backyard. You can, you know, twist the
Yeah,
doorknobs. You can. There's like a lot of ways of doing the same thing.
yeah.
You gotta if you kick through the front door every single time, and then one time you're gonna meet a tougher door than you can kick, then you can't get in.
Right. This reminds me of another one too, kind of like similar, but in different tennis. It's like Rafa Nadal saying, if you want to be a good tennis player, you just have to put the ball where the other person isn't, so that they will miss their swing. And so that reminded me of that when you were telling me that story. Because right now, like, yeah,
Yeah.
anyways.
So just like the Martin Luther King example, you're like, oh, um, you're not like, oh, I want a revolution, so I'm telling people to do a revolution, but nobody listens. So what am I gonna do? You know, it's not just, oh, so I want them to have feedback. I tell them feedback, they don't listen. Yeah, like they don't listen, but then at the same time, like how did you tell them? Did you tell them a
Right.
like different way? Like is there more effective way of communicating? I
Hmm.
have another story. You were saying you're gonna say something?
No,
No,
go ahead.
okay. Another story from Valuetainment interview, the same interview. So he said he was bringing his kids to what do you call it? Like have a fun day, okay? Just walk around
Have
town,
a go on an outing, yeah, with the
yeah,
family. Okay.
do some things, walk around. And then
Family
he's
bonding.
and then his boys were like, Daddy, Daddy, can I have gelato? And he's like, oh, maybe I'll wait for like to see your behavior for the rest of the day. If you behave good, I'm gonna take you to gelato, but we gotta do these things first. And then a few minutes later, his kids are like, Daddy, Daddy, can we go to gelato? And he was like, I haven't even seen your behavior. Like I need to give time and behave good. And then a few minutes later, like, Daddy, Daddy, like you're such a fun killer. And then and then he was like, what? I never even heard that word. But then
Yeah.
for the rest of the day, I keep on repeating back to them. They're like, Daddy, Daddy, can we go to gelato? And then he was like, no, because I'm a fun killer.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
they're like, no, 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 you're not a fun killer. And then he was like, yes, I am. I'm a fun killer. They're like, no, what? And then they go back and forth. And then he was like, okay, tell me why I'm not a fun killer. Convince me. And then they're like, oh, you take us out, you you
That's the
tell
shit
us
you would do.
stories, you read us books and like it's a compliment everything. And he was like, okay, what about your brother? Tell me something that your brother does well. He's smart. He thinks better than me. After a round of compliments for everybody, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna take you to the gelato. But this is to demonstrate to you words mean something. Words are powerful. Don't tell other people who they are because you don't know they might believe it.
Whoa, that's
So
yeah.
So if you tell people you're like you're no fun, you did this and that, you suck, they might believe it, they start sucking, they might
Yeah.
start being bad if you like. So that's like a way of giving feedback. Like if you tell people critically, oh, that's great, if you did this, it would have been so much clearer, they might improve on it. Versus if you're like, yo, you suck at communication, why are you even presenting, why would it be you, wouldn't it be better if someone else presents? And then they might believe it and then be like, oh, maybe I just suck at presenting, there's no point in even trying. Then they
Mm.
would never improve, and they would just, in their head, they were like, how like a lot of kids in North America, they're like, oh, I'm just not good at math. I'm like,
Oh
you
yeah.
never even tried, what are you talking about? You
Yeah.
know how many kids, I probably 100% of the kids from China think they're bad at math until they come over to North America, and they outscore everybody here.
That's so interesting to me. Just the level of and intensity.
Yeah,
Anyways.
but kids here, they don't even try. They look at the question for 1 second. They're like, I'm probably not good at math. Like, you haven't tried. What are you talking about? Like, you
Yeah.
know? And then that's very powerful when you believe who you are. And it's very sticky. It's very difficult to change that. And all of your mind, when your mind start to believe who you are, you would like limit your ability to just that.
Yeah.
It's scary.
So that's why I'm like, after that workshop, I was really thinking about, okay, like I can give feedback, but I really need to think about how I'm going to do it, because that's just exactly it. I don't want to ruin someone's dreams of like really trying to improve the workplace. They're truly making a genuine effort, and then I just shit all over the work. So that's why I'm just like, okay, like it's been taking me so long to give feedback because I need to be so careful with how I deliver it. And um, I mean, it's just at that point right now.
Yeah, like,
Anyways.
have you in your life received the exact same feedback from different people, but then some people, when they give you feedback, it's like you feel like they're complimenting you, but then
Yeah, yeah,
but
no, I
then
get it.
like you're a lot more welcoming to the feedback. Versus there are other people who give you feedback, it just sound like you're just right away, even though they're saying the exact same thing, right away it makes you resist it. You're like,
Hmm.
oh, they're on the other side, they're against me, it's me against them, whatever they say, you're not even listening. All you're doing is trying to think of what you can say back to them.
Yeah.
Have you
And
encountered those people? Have you encountered like just the people, there are people who can, they're like, they sound warm and welcoming, and they can say anything to you, you wouldn't get mad at them.
yeah, and now like I realize this too with the previous managers I've had, because um like I've had a manager give me feedback, and the way he's given it to me, it's like it really puts me down than like build me up, and that makes me resent or not want to even just make the change in the first place, because it didn't make me feel good. It didn't make me want to step up to the challenge type of thing, because it's a feedback that is so critical for me to change in order to do well, which is why it's being given to me and why it's important for me to change. But there are some managers, and there's one in particular where like I want to work for her. I want to, implement the feedback that is given back to me. And even like with other people that I've worked with, whereas like they're not even my manager, they talk to me and like they like, hey, like instead of the feedback is like, oh, do it this way or whatever, it's, hey, can I give you a tip? Like, what helped me do this faster that could probably help you too. I'm like, oh shit, like you're really going out of your way to help me out, kind of thing, you know, and it makes me want to step up to that challenge instead. So what made me think of that too is like, because I'm so big on building my character right now and really like challenging myself, is why I'm like thinking about these things of communication, and like I think more critically about how I affect my workplace and my colleagues, because I know that if I were to be in a management position, or if I really want to, um, build my career, I would be in that position to be giving that feedback to a subordinate or whoever, even if it's just my colleague, for example. And it's tough conversations that even the slightest way of speaking about something that is may make the other person feel bad, I could do it in a good way. There's always a good and bad way of doing things. I just want to do it in the most um, uplifting way as possible, because I have been on the other side of that, and I want to make sure that my influence carries on throughout their career, that they think back on it and want to be that way too of how I interacted with them.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of nice people in China, especially the
Mhm.
older people. But most nice people, but being nice alone is not enough. A lot of nice people, because they're just nice without
Yeah.
a direction,
Mhm.
they get pushed around.
Yeah.
Whereas occasionally you run into these nice people, they are like they're they're so good at like if two people have conflict and it's like impossible to resolve, they will call into this nice guy, quote unquote, and
Mhm.
he can sit them down and get two people who will never have a conversation. He can get people to drop their guards, be like, oh, he's this guy's friend, so like I'm willing to talk, like
Yeah.
he can sit down, he can resolve, he can like that's it's like a skill and a personality.
Yeah. And so like it'd be cool to, because I don't know necessarily, like maybe I do, I've had not compliments, but like I guess again feedback about how I communicate and how I was able to influence my colleague in the way she does things or how she approaches things, because she's also learning and everything is new to her, so it's like understandable, right? But I want to keep building on that. So learning about these things and seeing it from all different angles, and even putting myself and empathizing and putting myself in other people's shoes, I'm just like, okay, like if I hit this communication things like from all angles, I know something could come out of it, because it's a genuine effort. It's not malicious to put anyone down.
Well, also there's another, like, with presentation,
Hmm.
it's like with one-on-one in-person communication, you met people who can give you feedback specific to you and you're more accepting of it. And then
Mhm.
there's another skill where there are people who are presenting, they don't even know who they're presenting to, but naturally by you watching them when they're not even speaking to you, it motivates you still.
Yeah.
Like an example would be like Steve Jobs. I don't know how many Steve Jobs videos you watch, but he naturally has this charisma. Like he creates a vision, and he doesn't know he's speaking to Chantelle. There's Chantelle from, you know, like was Filipino and born in Canada is listening. He doesn't know her background and perspective, but anybody who watches him speak gets motivated, even if they're not in his field. They're like, oh shit, he's trying to change the world in his field. Maybe I can do the same too with my field.
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's something you can practice with a podcast,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why it's like fun to do this. And I mean, like at one point I felt like it was more of a burden, because I'm like, oh, like I have to come up with a topic. No, I'm like, this is candor feedback. Um uh because I had to come up with a topic, and like it's actually not. I think it's like my mindset and how I'm really approaching it. And because we had such an honest conversation and like about this, and we've kind of built our relationship based on Netflix's, candor feedback thing. And actually, the funny thing is that this candor feedback thing came from um was it CEO? I can't remember who it was. But anyways, this person came up with this idea, or was inspired by this idea to have such honest feedback, was because him and his wife had marriage counseling. Funny enough, like, wow, marriage counseling could help with the communication, right? So I think it's funny that like we from the very beginning, and you've really like set the tone on this from the get, like be honest, be straight, yeah. And then this is like what we've always had. Like we've had conversations in the car, even when we're like just starting to date. And we talk about the really hard topics first that normally people who are dating wouldn't even think to talk about in their first date, for example. Like we really went in deep dived into like, what do we want from our relationship? Actually, like people have been asking me lately about some relationship advice. So this is really interesting that we can talk about this now. So like they can watch
They're
this video
bringing me
and
for
just be,
relationship counseling.
yeah, or just like listen to this podcast. So anyways, yeah, we talked about like um why are we dating, like what our goals are, what, well, this is you asking me like what's my 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goals, like everything like that. And like to other people that's too difficult for them because they just want to date for fun and there's no real purpose to it. But for us, we have a purpose, and like we want to work towards something,
But
um
that's already like the third step. You know,
yeah, that's why I'm
that's
saying like
that's
this is
like
quite difficult to have a conversation, especially if you don't really know the person.
no, but they don't know themselves. Like you don't know yourself.
Yeah.
Like if you heard what you said about you, what you wanted and how you were gonna do things and whatever 2 years ago, you would say all of those were wrong. Like it doesn't matter how clearly, how well communicated you were to me, you were communicating the wrong information. So that's a kind of like a different thing.
I guess, yes, I guess it is different, but my point is having the difficult communication, different difficult conversations from the get, and really like enduring it, because we didn't have a difficult conversation and then, well, I have walked out on some conversations actually, like I will admit that, but I've learned that being honest and open about even how I'm feeling um, from the get, especially in real time, helps with our relationship and our relationship building.
Just like a presentation. Doesn't matter how good your presentation skill is. If you don't know what you're talking about, you will never be able to present it well. Like imagine
Yeah,
if the person who presented the software to you, he doesn't understand the software. Doesn't matter how good he is at presenting, he will never be able to present it well to you.
yeah,
So the same thing, yeah, like re- relationships, a big hurdle in relationships is communication. But before that, the first step is to understand yourself, figure yourself out. Same thing with doing a presentation. The first step in presentation is to understand the thing, understand the topic rather than how am I going to present it. If you know,
yeah. But I think we talked about this before, where you really enable me to like learn about myself and like grow. So that's why I don't want to talk about that too much in this one, because I already had talked about that. But um like with some couples who have asked me about relationship advice, it's more like um not understanding the other person, which leads to, oh, they haven't communicated, or like if they're feeling a certain way, they would go and vent to other people instead of having a direct conversation with the person that they're having like difficulties with, and like continuous arguments. So it'd be better to just it's so hard to just see like, oh, you're making me feel this way, blah blah blah, and you did this or whatever. Like it's hard to have that, but if you want your relationship to grow and you have to overcome, you know, obstacles together, that's kind of what you have to do, isn't it? Like that's what we did.
Yeah, but like I said, that's like a third step. If they haven't done the first, second step, the third step would help, but not resolve the problem. Like
Okay, so what's
for
mm,
example, if they're arguing and they say, "Oh, don't say that to me, it make me feel bad," whatever.
mm,
And then what if the other person come back into them and ask them, "Why would it make you feel bad?" They don't know. Like they don't know themselves enough to, you know, it's
yeah.
like if they don't have the first, second step down, it's not about communication at the point. They have nothing to communicate.
Okay, so like this is kind of evolving the topic from communication because it's like know yourself, but how does one know themselves then?
Um,
Yes, it like for me it's like difficult to even pinpoint because like everyone is different. So it should they I guess they should
question
know what
yourself,
stage they are in their life.
like question yourselves, ask yourself questions, especially why, and go deeper.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, like I said before, like somebody look at math, and then for 10 minutes they're like, oh, I'm just not the type of person for math. Like why? Oh,
Yeah.
because I look at it for 10 minutes. Oh, is that sufficient to judge whether you are a math person or not? Did Mr. Beast look at YouTube for 10 minutes and decide he's a YouTuber or he's not? Did Elon Musk look at Rocket for 10 minutes? Like,
Hmm.
it's like you gotta dig deeper. A lot of people are satisfied with a surface level answer. And if you don't ask deep questions, you will never get deep answers.
Hmm.
And whether it's some people are insecure, some people are just uncomfortable in general to dig deep and face themselves. Like they don't even want to find out the answer.
Mm.
Like if someone's an alcoholic, maybe they're alcoholic because some deep issue, but they're not gonna admit it. They're just like, oh no, alcohol is, I just like the taste of alcohol. Everybody likes it. Everybody party. Who doesn't party? Who doesn't do
Mm.
things that you regret? Just like deflect and put it on something else. And they'd rather to dig deep, and ask themselves the hard question. You got to ask yourself, like when we have arguments,
Yeah.
you in the moment you don't know why, you don't know what to say, right? And then you go home, and then you come back to me, you're like, oh, I really think about it, I ask myself why. You have a conversation with yourself, and then you understand it a
It's
little
putting
bit.
me on blast. It's true. This is true though. I
This is
mean,
not, I
like,
think everybody does this.
yeah.
I do
It's
this.
like it's a
I
hard to think and hard to communicate when you're in the moment, when you're freaking crying, bawling your eyes out, or you have so much emotions like bottled up that you don't want to show because you're like so mad.
yeah,
When I'm like facing the window and don't want to face you and
yeah,
have a conversation, or when I just leave the car because I'm like, fuck this. Like I don't want to even talk about it anymore. Yeah.
yeah. So I would, starting with asking yourself the question, if you want your partner to understand you, did you, if you want them to do the work to understand you, did you even bother to do the work to understand yourself?
Yeah.
Like anything you ask of someone else, think back to yourself, like, am I willing to do that? Am I doing that? If you want
Mm,
them to be understanding of you, are you trying to be understanding of them?
mm,
You want them to be understanding of you. Do you understand yourself? You know,
mhm.
it's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess in the beginning there was a lot of you asking me questions, like probing, I guess, like
Well, but the benefit of you being in a relationship with me is
Whoa,
that
whoa, 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 whoa. You benefit being in a relationship with me too.
uh,
Don't me.
disproportionately, yes.
No,
But
don't no. Maybe 49-51 or 51-49,
49.
but no way is it 80-20, okay? Chill out.
But what I'm saying though is, you know how like I ask you certain things.
Acknowledge it, Carino.
You
Don't
know
brush
how
it
like
off.
sometimes I tell you
51-49.
if I sometimes
For example, I don't like it when you brush me off like that because you're lawyering me now.
no, but I'm continuing the conversation. I'm keeping the conversation flowing. Okay.
And then sometimes you'll get answers like that because Lee is really good at lawyering and he'll just go right around. And he knows that. And I know that. So just as long as you understand each other, it's fine. And then when we're off the podcast, then we hash it out.
With your new learned boxing skills.
That's right. We'll talk about that after too, really quickly.
But
Or maybe not. I don't know.
yeah. What was I saying?
And that's where you get him because then he forgets the actual point he's trying to bullshit.
No. Okay, what I was saying was, okay, I remember. Because it makes so much
Gathers
sense,
himself real
they always
quick.
come
Okay.
back.
All right.
So, I ask you,
Here's the recovery.
I tell you certain things. I ask you questions, and you get
Uh-huh.
mad. You come
Uh-huh.
back at me with the same question. You're like, "What about you then? What do you think about this? What's your dream then?" And then I have an answer for you because I asked myself these questions before I ask you those questions, and I have an answer. Then it gives you the blueprint. You're like, "Oh, actually, this can be figured out." And this how he figured out, maybe I can try, the same way or like a little bit modified way or whatever. But then like hearing my answers about myself made you feel like, oh, this is possible and there's like a way type of thing. Imagine if two people were in a relationship and neither of them know. When one person questioned the other person just questioned back, and they neither of them have an answer.
Yeah, that's so painful. And that's so painful for me to like hear or listen to if anyone is going through that. So because I don't know how to help either, other than, well, you need to focus on yourself then. And it's tough to be in a relationship at that point because there's no movement that's going to be worth having because you need to have that movement with yourself first. But it comes off as insensitive. So anyways.
There's I was listening to Andrew Shaw's podcast, and they were bringing up Kim Kardashian was being interviewed. They were like, "Oh, what do you think makes successful women and whatever?" And she was like, "You need to work hard. All these women these days don't want to work hard," and da, 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 all the things she said. And she got a very big backlash from Twitter or something. And then they were discussing it. They were like, "There's nothing wrong with what she said. Why are people mad?" And then at the end, the result was, it's who said it. She was this, like, her dad was a millionaire, and she was famous for quote unquote no reason, and she got rich. So now she's like pointing fingers at other people, telling them to work harder. They just don't want to receive the message from this person, even though the message was correct.
See, the old me would also have the same response, as in, oh, what the heck, she grew up with a silver platter in her hand, blah 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 blah. Or sorry, she grew up given a silver platter. But no, I think in essence she's right. Now I realize that I have some insecurities that I had to deal with to even listen to a comment like that.
Well, that's a whole different thing. There's a whole different discussion. But my point in that is, imagine if the two people having a relationship, they view their partner like that. So anything they say, they're gonna be like, even though it's the correct message, I'm not gonna hear it from you. you're the person who do this and this and this, and you're gonna tell me that, and then the other person is gonna come back like that, but then you're the person who do that.
Yeah.
So like this is like a never ending cycle. Whereas if it was me, I would just absorb it. Like when you're like, why do you want me to be perfect? Who's perfect in the world? And I can be like me. It's very
Oh my
powerful.
goodness. Here we go, guys. This is what I have to deal with.
It's very powerful. It calms you down. It calms you right down.
I mean, not really.
Who's the 40? Who's the 51 in the relationship? Don't make me use that 1%.
Anyways,
Don't force me use that overwhelming majority.
well, Lee type of jokes. I don't think our audience is gonna understand. But this is like what it's like hanging out with us. So
what, because they learned their math in North America?
no, you
don't
guys be
understand the
different.
difference
How?
between 51
We
49
have some
majority.
subscribers from Australia. What's up, Aussies?
maybe the Australia person is the one that left.
Oh man, yeah, we had one subscriber leave, and I was like, what's going on here? Maybe they deactivated their account. Mind you, we're not focused on subscribers, so
Well, I don't know when this episode is gonna release. By that time, it's probably inaccurate. There's
maybe.
a Tesla person I watch. He posted a new video today. He was like, "Oh, I'm approaching 5,000 subscribers," and I look, it's 5.2 already. I'm like, what are you talking about? Approaching 5,000? The guy's subscriber count goes up too fast. He can't.
Yeah, in 1
like,
second.
if it's like 1 day delay in posting the video, it's like not even relevant. It's so
Oh,
crazy.
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, you have anything else to add in our presentation, communication, relationship building pod today?
No, I just want to say that how I like described to you earlier. It's like when Steve Jobs talks, he's not talking to you and he's not talking about something that you can do. You still feel motivated.
Yeah.
That's a skill I'm practicing right now with the podcast. And that's in an ideal scenario, that's what I want. In the future, when people watch our videos, they, even if they don't know what we're saying, they don't care about the topics, just the vibe, the feeling after watching our videos, they just want to get up and do some shit.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm trying to develop.
That's like what I understand now too.
More than views and subscribers, that's because that skill I'm gonna carry for the rest of my life. That's always gonna have value for me. Views and subscribers are not always gonna have value for me.
Well, that got real deep real quick. But that's kind of like how I started viewing things, because remember earlier I was like, oh, I was starting to like feel like this was a burden at one point, and it's not. It's more like, yeah, like
The opportunity.
it is, and it's like I'm grateful to even be on this platform, and even more grateful and fortunate that it's with you, because it's a cool thing. It's something special. Not every couple has something like this or can do something like this. So I'm literally cherishing every moment while building this with you and working on my character and all of these things that will help our relationship, and then further along the road when
just
the
like
next chapter of our life will be. So
just like when I was door-to-door sales, I was actually learning in-person communication skills.
yeah.
And afterwards, it didn't turn out to be a career for me, but it still benefited me to this day. So those 6 months or 8 months I was a salesperson is so worth it. Not because of the money, not because of the I can put it on my resume, none of that.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing now. We're doing this podcast on YouTube. Imagine a year from now, we have no subscribers, no views, so we decide to not do it anymore. by that time, even if we stop doing it, I will never regret it, because I will look back and feel like it's worth it. Why I didn't do it? You know, a lot of people would do YouTube and they give up for a year. They will feel like it's wasted. Oh, I could have
Mm.
put that time on my other career if I knew YouTube wasn't going to work out. Whereas for me, I wanted to walk away feeling like I've developed a skill I could only uniquely develop through YouTube. So
Yeah.
after a year, even if I decide to quit, I'm like, that's so worth it. It only took me 1 year to develop a public speaking skills where most people in their whole lifetime don't even develop. I can
Yeah.
take that away with me, even if YouTube doesn't work out and then decide to quit.
No, I agree. And that's the angle
Versus,
that,
versus if you don't develop that, and after a year, if you quit YouTube, you just feel time wasted. Why did you do it for a year? If you, then the only thing that validate you is the views and the subscribers and the money that's gonna come with it. Then you know. You
yeah,
do you know H3H3?
no.
Oh, well, it's just essentially like a YouTuber. He's like pretty big. He got like 5 million subscribers or something.
Mm.
But um, he did reaction videos to bad YouTube videos,
Mm.
and it went viral. And he kept doing it until a couple of years ago. There isn't many bad videos anymore. Like in the beginning of the YouTube days, a lot of videos are really, really bad. So he make
Mm.
fun of them and whatever. Now he doesn't, and he started a podcast and he does a lot of sponsorships, and his fans, his subscribers back have is having a very strong backlash toward him. They're like, you're just chasing money. You're just doing whatever. He has two channels. He started a new podcast channel where he makes money, and then his original channel, which he was being him and he was entertaining people, he was like quote unquote expressing his art. He stopped uploading. He only upload like once in 3 months, and then he uploads sponsorship video.
Mm.
And people were like, no, you're not doing your art, you're just doing whatever makes money. Sponsorship tell you to do this, you just do that, you know. So he
Yeah.
started chasing views and money and wherever money is. And you know, so
Yeah.
that if we look at YouTube like in that way, we're gonna end up there. Even if he had success for like multiple years, but eventually
Mm.
you're gonna end up in that place, in a
Yeah.
like a circular argument. I will only I will only do things that will make money, but you can only do you can only make money if you make good content, but you can only make good content if you don't care about money. So it's a
Mm.
whole circular argument, and they end up chasing, and it's just, yeah.
Yeah. It goes through the whole like hamster wheel. But yeah, I wanted to say that like that's why I have taken this approach so much more differently than before. And I'm like on board and I understand where you want to take this too. So that's why it's, yeah, it's different when people ask me like, oh, why are you doing YouTube or like all this stuff? Like, are you something, how many subscribers do you have or whatever? Like, it's, I mean, it's cool, it's chill, we're just being us, and like, I want my energy on here to speak for itself. It's nothing that you can really pinpoint type of thing, and that's what makes it special because you can't pinpoint it, like you just don't understand, but it works, and it's actually difficult doing this with someone else. Like you can talk all day by yourself and have topics, but it's kind of hard to have this kind of chemistry and to kind of have topics that we kind of gel with. Like it's interesting. It's interesting journey for so far, and I don't know. I want to continue exploring that
Yeah,
with our subscribers or community or whatever, and with you.
yeah, by the way, that's a approach I um, recommend everybody to take with
Mhm.
everything, not just the good thing, even the bad things. A lot of people, when something quote unquote bad happens to them, they just complain, why me? Why does this have to happen to me? Why, you know? Instead, take an approach as this will always pass, but then right now it's a unique opportunity for me to use it to develop myself. So when they pass, I wouldn't feel like it was a wasted time or opportunity or whatever. I can take something away with from it.
Yeah.
Like if something bad happened to your family, instead of thinking, why does it have to be my family? How come other families don't have to go through this? Think about it as, oh, this is such a good bonding opportunity for my family. Other families who go through all great times, they never bond like that. It's
Mhm.
easy to go through good times, as a group. It's the tough times that makes you stronger.
Yeah, and I've started embracing obstacles because it makes it interesting, which was totally a different take than what I had, approached my life with before. Because it's true, when you go through something so easy, it's not exciting anymore. It's just like not memorable. But when you go through obstacles and challenges, it makes it that much more interesting to go through and that much more valuable to speak on for others.
Yeah, and
So,
you can take something away from it rather than
yeah.
just suffer through it. If you get sick, you can be like, oh, why does it have to be me who's sick? And I don't feel good and all of this. You could take an opportunity to be like, oh, maybe I haven't been taking care of myself. Let me get fit, And then after the sickness passed by, you, even the sickness is not there anymore. The benefits still you're carrying with you. You change your life around and you became more like what do you call it, like more fit, and you live a healthier lifestyle now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, having said all of that, don't be normal, be yourself. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye.
Bye bye.